Imagine walking down the cereal or beverage aisle of a massive American grocery store. To the naked eye, it is a cathedral of choice, a vibrant display of thousands of colorful boxes and bottles, all competing for your attention. But this is the monopolistic mirage, a sophisticated psychological trap designed to mask a jarring reality. Nearly every brand you see is owned by a small circle of just 10 global conglomerates. You feel a deep-seated distrust because, despite switching brands to find better value, you notice the quality remains stagnant and the prices continue their synchronized climb regardless of the label on the front. This paradox of choice is explained through behavioral economics as a system that provides an overwhelming variety of labels specifically to prevent you from noticing the monopoly that controls the actual supply. By flooding the shelves with 50 types of water or 20 types of detergent that all lead back to the same parent company, they create a sense of competition that simply doesn't exist. Corporations exploit neuroscience to build artificial emotional connections with independent or artisanal brands that are merely subsidiaries of a larger cold machine, ensuring that your search for an alternative always leads back to them. The "nobody explains anything" gap exists because the institutions we trust to monitor these markets have allowed a few giants to rewrite the rules of the game. You are working harder and paying more, not for better products, but to maintain the profit margins of these 10 entities. This is the result of a calculated consolidation era that turned a once competitive marketplace into a failed model of centralized corporate power. It is a system designed to make you feel empowered by choice while ensuring that every dollar you spend eventually flows into the same few massive reservoirs of capital. Behind the colorful labels lies a calculated strategy of horizontal integration, where these giants buy out their rivals not to improve the product, but to eliminate the pressure of competition and control the real cost. This creates a pricing echo chamber, a hidden pattern where supposedly competing brands raise prices in perfect synchronization. When you see 3 different brands of bread or soda increase in price on the same day, you aren't witnessing the invisible hand of the free market. You are seeing the deception of a system where the rules of supply and demand have been replaced by a quiet cartel model. The incentives of this model are inherently perverse. Once total market capture is achieved, corporations are rewarded for reducing product lifespan and quality. Without a small, hungry competitor to offer a more durable or honest alternative, the giants can engage in a systematic decline of standards to maximize extraction from your wallet. This is why genuine innovation has stalled across so many sectors. Profit is no longer reinvested into making things better or more efficient for the consumer. Instead, it is funneled into acquiring the next small threat to the monopoly before it can gain a foothold. This supply chain dictatorship ensures that even the most well-meaning local business often has to buy its raw materials or use distribution networks owned by one of the Big 10. It creates an artificial dependency that makes the entire national economy fragile, as the internal efficiency of a single mega corporation becomes a structural vulnerability for the public. We are living in a manufactured reality where the very word competition has been hollowed out, becoming a mere marketing term used to distract us from a world where the winners were decided long before we ever reached the shelf. There is a hidden revelation in the corporate structures of today that we call the brand shell game. Ethical, organic, or local brands are often acquired by conglomerates to serve as a green shield, protecting a parent company with a history of structural corruption. This creates an intense cognitive dissonance for the modern shopper, who tries to vote with their wallet, only to find their money ends up in the same system they were trying to avoid. You buy the organic soap to avoid the chemical giant, only to find out that the chemical giant bought that soap brand 3 years ago to capture the conscious consumer segment and neutralize your protest. This centralization allows these 10 companies to harvest massive amounts of consumer behavior data, creating a dependency that reinforces their manipulation of future trends. They don't just know what you bought, they know which of their brands you switched to when you got angry at the other one. This data monopoly is the ultimate tool for maintaining control, allowing them to predict and neutralize consumer shifts before they can ever threaten the Big Ten. Meanwhile, marketing creates an artificial hierarchy of value, shaming off-brand products to keep you trapped in a cycle of paying a premium to the same giants under a different, more prestigious name. The institutional silence surrounding this issue is no accident. These 10 entities often provide the majority of advertising revenue for major media outlets and spend millions on political lobbying to ensure the anatomy of the problem is never addressed in a courtroom or a newsroom. The "nobody explains anything" gap is maintained because the tools we use to understand the world, from the news we watch to the digital platforms we use, are often subsidiaries of the very structures we are trying to analyze. This creates a loop of consumer blindness, where the system is built to be incoherent and exhausting, ensuring you remain a passive participant in your own exploitation. The most chilling aspect of this consolidation is the wage price trap, where we live in a world where your employer and the producer of your food may ultimately be controlled by the same financial interests. This leads to stagnant salaries and a silent crisis where the worker is squeezed from both ends, receiving lower pay while facing higher costs for essential goods. The consequence is a total rupture in local economies. Unique community businesses are replaced by the sterile efficiency of a model built for the few. This isn't just an economic shift, it is the death of local identity and the exhaustion of a life where every choice feels fake and predetermined. Real-world examples show that product quality often drops significantly after a Big Ten acquisition, as ingredients are swapped for fillers and manufacturing is moved to the lowest-cost regulatory havens. This leaves the consumer with a real cost that far outweighs the price tag, as the durability and efficacy of the product are sacrificed for quarterly earnings. This centralization also creates a profound fragility. Using mental models like the single point of failure, we can see why a world owned by 10 companies is highly susceptible to collapse. If one of these giants has a supply chain break, it doesn't just affect one brand, it creates a national instability that affects entire categories of goods simultaneously. Validating the exhaustion of the modern consumer is key to understanding this decline. It is not in your head. The system really is becoming more monolithic and less responsive to your needs. This systemic decline contributes to a broader sense of societal instability, as the wealth generated by your daily purchases no longer stays in your community to build schools or parks, but is siphoned off into offshore accounts of a global conglomerate. The true human cost of this monopoly is the loss of agency in our own lives, as we become mere data points in a global game of wealth extraction.
These 10 entities operate above the system of any single nation, existing as borderless conglomerates that use complexity and global arbitrage to avoid taxes and regulations. They exert immense pressure on sovereign governments to change laws in their favor, often threatening to move production or withhold essential supplies if a country tries to enforce traditional antitrust laws. It is a structural fraud on a global scale, where corporations have attained a level of sovereignty that rivals and sometimes exceeds that of the nations where they operate. The consumer is no longer a citizen protected by their state, but a subject of a private, global domain. Comparing the American monopoly model to other regions reveals that this crisis is a deliberate political choice. While some international markets have attempted to resist corporate consolidation with stricter enforcement and right-to-repair laws, the U.S. has allowed the fragility of the just-in-time model to become the standard. This system was built to benefit the few by sacrificing resilience for hyper-efficiency, ensuring that quality and safety are the first things sacrificed on the altar of the Big Ten profit margins. When the entire global economy is a race to the bottom, the winners are those who can exploit the most territory with the least accountability. The corporate accountability vacuum is the natural result of this consolidated power. When a product causes harm or a market is manipulated, these giants use their vast legal and PR resources to ensure that public mistrust is redirected toward individuals or small actors, effectively shielding the parent company from any real consequence. To understand the depth of this, we must look at the micro-history of past cartels as an economic metaphor for how monopolies have been coordinating the decline of competition for over a century. It is a global game of chess where the consumer is not a player, but the board itself, used and discarded in the pursuit of perpetual growth.
Individual advice, like shop local, is often an insulting and vague conclusion when the monopolies have already systematically destroyed the local options. The scam isn't just about which brand of soda you buy. It's about a system that requires total dependency and manipulation to avoid its own collapse. We must validate your intellectual strength. The feeling that your choices are being narrowed is a hidden truth of the modern economy. The macro revelation is that these 10 companies do not just own products, they own the incentives that govern our daily lives and the narratives that shape our perception of reality. The path to resilience involves shifting our focus toward communities that see beyond the superficial and support alternative models of ownership and decentralized production. This is about reclaiming the macro vision needed to see through superficial narratives and identifying the structural flaws before they become personal catastrophes. We must demand a real context where the law prioritizes human consequences over corporate pressure. Breaking the monopoly starts with the refusal to accept the illusion of choice as a substitute for actual freedom. And it continues by supporting the few remaining independent structures that still exist outside the Big Ten umbrella. In this final reflection, we see a sobering twist on what this story reveals about the future of the country. If we continue to allow 10 companies to consolidate every aspect of our existence, from the food we eat to the information we consume, we aren't just losing brands, we are losing the ability to self-govern. The scam ends only when the desire for honesty outweighs the convenience of the mirage. We must build a future where innovation serves the person, not the parent company, and where the market is a tool for the many, not a trap for the all.